Hey, Ollie, Arlo, and Frank. Grandpa coming to you in the Vatican at Cradle Creek Preserve in Jacksonville Beach. This is not that far from my house, our house, I should say. And sometimes I walk over here and take a hike through here, but today I parked here and took a hike over to Wingate Park, which is the recreation center. And then I did the little paths here. It's only maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile in this preserve itself, but it's very beautiful. I've tried in the past to do videos here, but whenever there's anybody parked here, you know you're going to run into people out there, so I just stayed away from it. Today we're going to jump into another from the special limited edition Tales from Grimm, classic collection of favorite tales from Grimm. And the one we're going to look at today is The Fisherman and His Wife. A very long time ago, in a small hut by the sea, there lived a poor fisherman and his wife. Each day passed exactly as the one before it. As soon as the sun came up, the fisherman went and sat by the sea and fished, but he caught little. All day he watched the changing tides of the sea and the changing colors of the sky. In the evening, as the sun went down, he would go home to his wife. One day, when the fisherman pulled in his line, he found he had caught a very large flounder. He was delighted, but before he had time to admire his catch, the flounder started to talk. "I am not really a flounder," said the fish. "I am an enchanted prince. Please throw me back into the sea. If you kill me, it will not help you. You will only eat me, and after a few mouthfuls, I will be gone. And I don't even taste very good. Be kind and let me swim away free." "You need not worry," said the fisherman. "I would be a fool to eat a talking flounder. I will gladly set you free." So he carefully unhooked the flounder and dropped him back into the water. He swam away at once, and the fisherman went home to his wife. "Did you catch anything today?" she asked, as she always did. "Yes," he said, "I caught a talking flounder who said he was an enchanted prince, so I put him back into the water and let him swim free." "Did you not ask for a wish?" she said. "No," said the man, "there is nothing that I wish for." "Well, I have a wish," said the woman. "Do you think I want to spend my life in this little hut? I want to live in a beautiful cottage. Go back to the sea and call the talking flounder. Tell him we wish for a cottage. I am sure he will give you whatever you want. You saved his life." And here is the talking fish. The problem is that I am also a fisherman, and this fish is not a flounder. I don't know what kind it is, but it doesn't look like any flounder that I've ever caught, and I've caught flounders. So the man went back to the sea to call the flounder. He was not very happy to do this, but he wished to please his wife. He thought there was nothing wrong with their little hut. When the fisherman got to the sea, it was no longer shining and brilliantly blue. It had turned a dark green that was not very pretty. A storm was brewing. The fisherman stood near the water's edge and called, "Talking flounder, deep in the sea, once caught, I set you free. Come, I call for my wife, Ilsabel. She has a wish that I must tell." Immediately the flounder appeared. "What is your wife's wish?" she asked. "My wife says I should not have let you go without first making a wish. She does not want to live in a hut. She wishes instead for a cottage." "Go home," said the flounder. "You will find that she has her wish." So the man went home and found his wife sitting outside a pretty little cottage. "Come look at our new home," she said, taking his hand. What a change from their old hut. There was a bright entrance hall, a sitting room with cozy sofas, a pretty little kitchen, and a bedroom with a big bed. Outside in the yard were chickens and ducks. There was also a small garden filled with vegetables and ripe fruit trees. And here's the cottage, the upgrade from the hut. Cottage to a hut. I think this was an HGTV thing. HGTV show called Hut Makeover. Excuse me. Sorry, kids. "Isn't this better than our tiny hut?" asked the wife. "It is nice," admitted the fisherman. "We can live here happily for the rest of our lives." "Maybe," said the wife. Then they ate their supper and went to bed. It was only a week later when the wife said to her husband, "This cottage is too small. The Flounder should have given us a better home. Go and tell him I wish instead for a stone castle." "But our new cottage is nice," said the fisherman, "and we do not need a castle." "A castle would be much better than this little cottage. You saved the Flounder's life. He can certainly give us a castle." Well, if that Flounder was so smart, why did he get caught in the first place? I'm just saying. "But he gave us our wish. I do not like asking for more," said the fisherman. "Don't be a fool," said his wife. "Go and ask." So the man went. This time the sea was even darker and less clear than before, and the sky was darker too. But the fisherman called out, "Talking Flounder, deep in the sea, once caught, I set you free. Come, I call for my wife, Ilsabel. She has a wish that I must tell." "What is your wish? What is it your wife now wishes for?" said the Flounder. The fisherman was very embarrassed. "A stone castle," he said. "Go home," said the Flounder. "You will find that she has her wish." The fisherman went home, and where the cottage had stood just 1 hour earlier, there was now an enormous stone castle with grand steps leading up to it. His wife was on the steps, and she reached out her hand to him. "Come inside, and I will show you our new home," she said happily. What a home! There was a grand entrance hall of marble, and servants who opened wide the large doors as they walked from room to room. In each room they found elegant furniture and soft plush carpets. The walls were covered with beautiful tapestries, and crystal chandeliers hung from the ceilings. It was everything the wife had imagined a castle to be. Horses in clean stables, and a coach house filled with fancy coaches were outside. There was also a beautiful garden of flowers and fruit trees, and in the land around the castle were deer and rabbits and many other animals. "Isn't this better than the cottage?" asked the wife after she had shown the fisherman everything. "It is very nice," said the fisherman. "We can live here contented for the rest of our lives." What do you think Wifey Pooh's going to say? You guessed it. "Maybe," said the wife. And after they ate the fine supper that had been prepared for them, they climbed into soft feather beds and went to sleep. The next morning, when the wife awoke, she gazed out the window at the beautiful countryside. Her husband was still asleep, so she nudged him impatiently. "Wake up," she said. "There is much to do today. Do you see all this? It all could be ours. We could rule all this land. I want you to go tell the Flounder that you wish to be king." "Why?" asked the fisherman. "Why?" This castle is very nice, and I do not want to be king. If you do not want to be king, then I will be king. Go tell the flounder that is my wish. But I can't ask the flounder to make you king. He has already given us this magnificent castle. What is this castle? She said. Why should I live here when I can be king? It will be no problem for the flounder. Go and ask him at once. Reluctantly, the fisherman went back to the sea. Now the water was dark gray, and the waves were raging, and the sky was more stormy than before. But once again, the fisherman called out. And if you notice, there's a pattern here. Every time he goes back, it's closer and closer to like a hurricane kind of storm. And now it's basically here. Talking flounder, deep in the sea, once caught, I set you free. Come, I call for my wife, Ilsabel. She has a wish that I must tell. And here he is. There aren't a lot of pictures in this book. But here he is, calling for the fish. What is it your wife wishes for? Asked the flounder. I do not ask this happily, flounder. Now her wish is to be king. Go home, said the flounder. You will find that she has her wish. And when the fisherman arrived back where the stone castle had stood earlier that day, there was now an enormous royal castle. At each corner was a great tower, and a sentinel stood at the huge main gate. That's a guard, a sentinel. Soldiers in uniforms of red, white, and black stood at different posts. Inside, the fisherman found enormous stairways and halls of pink marble, and all the rooms were decorated with majestic marble statues. There were thick curtains and gold-laced tapestries, and more elegance than the fisherman had ever imagined. At last he was led into an enormous hall with windows higher than 2 men. In the center of the room sat his wife on a magnificent gold throne, wearing a beautiful gown and a crown of gold and diamonds. All around her stood courtiers waiting to serve her. And they're the people of the court, courtiers. Courtier, I guess you'd say, in French. Well, said the fisherman, now you are king. Yes, said the wife. Isn't this better than a simple stone castle? Look at all my courtiers. Look at the splendor of our new home. It is magnificent, agreed her husband. Be contented with this. You have what you wished for. We have need for nothing greater. But, said the wife, I wish for more. What is a king when I can be emperor? Go to the flounder at once. Tell him I wish to be emperor. Surely you can be happy with all this, said the fisherman. I do not want to ask the flounder to make you emperor. There is only one emperor in the entire land. I'm sure the flounder cannot do this. If he can make me king, he can make me emperor, said the wife. Do not disobey me. Remember, I am now the king. Go at once. So that's just a nightmare, a man nightmare. Your wife is the king. You have to listen to her anyway, but now she can kill you if you don't listen to her. So reluctantly, the fisherman went down to the sea. I think by now I'm like, listen, you need to get me a boat to get out of here. So reluctantly, the fisherman went down to the sea, but as he went, he thought about his wife's wish, and he thought it was too much. And when he arrived at the sea was almost black and very stormy, and the waves were very big and looked dangerous. The sky was somber. But even though the fisherman was frightened, he called out, Talking flounder, deep in the sea, once caught, I set you free. Come, I call for my wife, Ilsabel. She has a wish that I must tell. "What is it she wishes for?" asked the flounder. The fisherman was very nervous. "My wife wishes to be emperor," he said softly. "Go home," said the flounder. "You will find that she has her wish." When he got back to the place where the royal castle had stood, only a few hours earlier, the fisherman now saw an enormous palace. It was made of polished marble inlaid with colored jewels. Gold statues adorned the halls so that the whole building sparkled and glistened in the sun. Everywhere around the castle there were not just soldiers, but barons and counts and dukes of the land. All were there only to serve the emperor. The fisherman was taken to a splendid room in an inner court, and there sat his wife on a throne even bigger than the last. Her gown was even more wonderful than before. It was encrusted with gems, as were her crown, her scepter, and her orb. I think the orb is part of the scepter, actually. I think it's this globe. Around her were many noblemen and gentlewomen waiting to talk to her. But the fisherman went right up to her and said, "Well, now you are emperor." And here's the barons and all these folks. "Well, now you're emperor." "Yes," said the wife. "Isn't it much better than merely being king?" The fisherman stood back a few feet and gazed at his wife and all the beautiful things around her. "At last you can be contented," he said. The emperor looked at her husband. "Don't just stand there," she said. "I may be emperor, but now I want to be pope." So she doesn't just want to be the head of the empire. She wants to be the head of the Roman Catholic Church. And back when these stories were told, way back in the day, the Pope was a very powerful individual, politically as well as spiritually. "No, wife," the fisherman said. "I cannot ask the flounder this. There is only one Pope in all of Christendom. The flounder cannot change that. You have many great things, and there is no reason to wish for more." "I will to be Pope. If the flounder can make me emperor, he can make me Pope. Go at once. I am the emperor, and this is my command." And so the fisherman set off, though he was miserable as he went. He did not want to tell the flounder of his wife's wish to be Pope, because he thought this would certainly be more than the flounder would do. And as he went towards the sea, the sky turned black, the clouds moved very quickly, and the wind became very fierce. When he got there, the water was very rough and tempestuous, with foam blowing everywhere. It was clear that the worst storm imaginable was brewing. But the fisherman had to obey his wife, the emperor. So he went to the water and called once again, "Talking flounder, deep in the sea, once caught, I set you free. Come, I call for my wife, Ilsabel. She has a wish that I must tell." As before, the flounder appeared immediately. "What is it your wife now wishes for?" he asked. The fisherman shook with fear. "Alas, flounder, although I'm not happy telling you this, her wish is to be Pope." "Go home," said the flounder. "You will find she has her wish." So home again went the fisherman, and when only an hour before had stood the emperor's palace, the fisherman now found an enormous cathedral surrounded by a variety of palaces. The fisherman was led inside the majestic complex, where all the fine stone and marble glistened with thousands of white candles and elaborate gold ornaments. At last he arrived at an inner sanctuary where he found his wife sitting on a papal throne dressed in pure white. Kneeling before her were dignitaries from many lands. "Well, said the fisherman, you are now Pope." "Yes," she said, "I am Pope." And the fisherman stood and looked around in amazement, for he had never seen nor could have imagined so much beauty and so many riches. Then he said, "Be contented with this, wife. There is nothing more you can wish for." So what do you think she's going to say? And what could she wish for next? You know, there's all these people that come up here. They park in the handicap spot. They get out and walk their dogs. And they have handicap tags, but they're obviously not handicapped. I don't like that. "I will see," said the wife firmly. So he said, "You'll be contented with being the Pope." And she says, "I will see," said the wife firmly. But the woman was not content and did not sleep that night, for her greed was so great that she lay awake, tossing and turning, trying to think of what else she could possibly wish for. She felt sure the Flounder would give her whatever she wanted, but she could not think of anything. The next morning, when the sun and the pink of early morning started to spread across the land, the Pope went to the window to watch the sun awaken all. Suddenly she thought to herself, "Why can't I make the sun rise and all the world rise with it? If I could do this, I would truly have awe." She quickly went to wake the poor little fisherman. She quickly went to wake the fisherman. "Husband," she said, shaking him roughly, "go at once to the Flounder. Tell him that I wish to control the sun and all the earth. I wish to be God." Ooh. The fisherman thought he must be dreaming. Trust me, fisherman, if your wife's making unreasonable demands, you're not dreaming. It might be a nightmare, but you're awake. Don't tell your grandmother I said that, by the way. Fisherman thought he must be dreaming because he did not believe that his wife thought the Flounder could make her God. But the wife shook him again. Up, get up. Go at once to the Flounder. I shall never be content until I have these powers too." The husband turned pale. "No," he said, "this the Flounder cannot do. He made you king and then emperor, and now he has even made you Pope, but he cannot make you God. Be contented with what you have. Please, wife, be contented at last." How's this going to work out? But the wife flew into a wild rage. She screamed and stamped her feet. Her hair flew all around so that she looked like a woman gone mad. "No, no, no," she yelled. "I will be God, and the Flounder must give me my wish. I must be God, or I will never be content. Go at once," she bellowed. The fisherman was terrified. He had never before seen his wife in such a state. He dressed hurriedly and ran to the sea as quickly as he could. When he got to the sea, there was a storm raging so fiercely that going near the water was very dangerous. The waves were wild and high. The wind blew so strongly that houses, trees, animals, and even people were blown about, and rocks tumbled from the mountains. The sky was pitch black with lightning and thunder cracking down again and again into the roaring sea. But the fisherman summoned all his courage and called, "Talking Flounder, deep in the sea, once caught, I set you free. Come, I call for my wife, Ilsebel. She has a wish that I must tell." Immediately, as before, the Flounder appeared. "What is it your wife now wishes for?" he asked. "I truly do not want to tell you," said the fisherman. but I must. Alas, she wishes to be God. Go home, said the fish. You will find that she does not have her wish. And the fisherman went home, back to the same spot where the Pope's residence had been just hours earlier, and just hours before that, the Emperor's palace, and hours before that, the King's castle, and before that, the stone castle, and before that, the pretty little cottage, and before that, their own humble hut. And there the fisherman found his wife, just as she had always been before he caught the talking flounder, stooped over her little fire, and as it had always been, she had nothing much to say, and they lived the rest of their days just that way. Bit off more than she could chew, so they're back there, but it shut her up. I'll say that. She probably wasn't a lot of fun to be around, but it shut her up. Yeah, I take liberties because your grandmother doesn't watch these. Peace out.